and I'm going to start now. It looks like when I maximize this, I won't be able to see the chat box. So and I'm going to mute you, but if you have any questions, looks like you might have muted yourself. I don't know. If you have any questions, you can type them in the chat box, and hopefully I will be able to see them. Again, when I hit play slideshow, I can't see anything but the slide, just like you can, which is weird because usually in GoToMeeting you can see the control panel, but sometimes you can't. I'm not sure why that is. So I'm just going to get started. Welcome to our first GoToMeeting for English Composition 2. Thank you for coming. If you're watching this recording, let me double check that I've started the recording. Yes, just want to make sure. Um, and and you can see my screen, correct? And here, I hope. Okay, good. So I will get started. I just want to make sure, because as I said, if I maximize this slide, I won't be able to see anything in the control panel, such as comments. So if the sound is off, I won't know. Okay, so anyway, welcome to the meeting and thank you for coming. And if you are listening to this recording, thank you for listening. Um, if you're there, because there's no way for me to see the responses to this, I'm not going to ask you to fill this out, but to type this in the chat box. But I'm always interested to know what program my students are in, and I can't even tell anymore with the new version of FSO. There's no indication what program anyone is in for instructors. In the old version, it was listed by your name in the roster, sort of in the list of students, but we don't see it anymore unless it's hidden. We don't know what program you're in. So you're just students to us. I know that there's about 4 or 5 programs that take this class. So I would assume you'd be in one of those, but otherwise we don't know. Okay, so course overview. This course is a writing class, as you've probably figured out, because it is an English composition class. And what we're going to be doing in this class is called argument. So you're going to be writing forms of argument and culminating at the end in a researched essay. And the essay is done in several steps. Now, you're not going to be starting it this week. You will be starting it at the end of next week. You'll be starting the first step, I should say. This week, we're getting used to writing argument and using outside sources and finding out about a few of the elements of argument. You'll also be analyzing an argument, and I will be going over the assignment in this slide presentation. I also apologize if there's other noise. I hear someone else talking, so it's confusing for me to talk, but I am at Full Sail and sometimes that happens. Okay, I am on campus, I mean. So we do argument, and by argument we don't mean debate necessarily or arguing back and forth, but writing convincing pieces of writing that will persuade your readers to agree with you by the end. That's the goal. That's the goal of what you're writing. So you have to come up with really strong reasoning, and you have to come up with also strong outside support from research. And so that's the second thing that you see on here is that you will be doing research to find sources to support your argument points. And you're going to be using them in your paper. Not too much this week, but starting next week, you're going to be sort of taking steps toward putting a lot of research into your writing. And you're going to be documenting that research with APA formatting, and that should be familiar to most, if not all of you. You should be using that here at Full Sail all along because that is the Full Sail style. That is the way we document our papers and our research. So I'm just going to quickly go over basic APA formatting just so we're all on the same page. But when I'm done, the next few slides, I'm going to show you a wonderful resource that we have. If you haven't already looked at it, I did link to it on FSO in your class. So the font that you want to use is Times New Roman 12 point. Now, if you use Times 12 point, I'm not going to say, oh no, you didn't use Times New Roman. The font isn't especially important, but it has to be a serif font. So if you know what a serif font is, you're actually looking at one right now on the screen. that means that you see the T in Times. It has the little lines hanging down from the top bar, and the base has the horizontal line. That's a serif font, like Arial or Universe are sans serif fonts. So you want to use a serif font. And just use Times New Roman or Times. I think for most of us, the default font on our Macs is also a serif font that really looks a lot like Times. I think it's Cambria, if I'm not mistaken. You want to indent the paragraphs a half an inch or 5 spaces. So just and a lot of times you're in Word that is naturally set up. So if you hit Tab, you can it will automatically go a half an inch or 5 spaces. Make sure it doesn't go more or less. You can set it as well if you want, but again, it sounds picky, but that is APA formatting, and I was supposed to teach that to you. Also, double space your papers. Now, if you're on the discussion board, you don't need to double space. That's not going to work that well on the discussion board. But you don't want to put extra space. So you don't put 2 enters after paragraph, you just put 1. You don't, oh, and then you want a 1 inch margin on all sides of the paper. The default margins, I think, are 1.5 on the right and left, or at least the left. And again, I'm not going to measure it. I actually had teachers measure this stuff when I was in college, but that's because I had to print out everything, and we're not even going to be printing out things. But it should be 1 inch on all sides of your paper, top, bottom, left, and right. You want to use these in-text parenthetical citations, and this is really, really important. What I'm telling you right now is one of the most important things you're going to learn in this class, and some of you already know this, and some of you know it but aren't doing it correctly. I just graded last month's final papers, and there were still some students who weren't doing this correctly. That's why I really emphasize it here, because I want to make sure everyone understands what they're supposed to do, because I take points off if you don't do it correctly. Anytime you use something from your research, so from an outside source, in the body of your paper, you must use in-text parenthetical citations to document that. The first bullet point here shows you how to do one of them. That is, if you had the quotation or paraphrase before it, and then you would put Adams 2014. I say 2014. A lot of people hate that, but it's quicker. A lot of people want me to say 2014. Or 2014 even. That's a lot. That's a mouthful. So anyway, you put the period after the parenthetical citation. You don't put it before it. So you run the quotation or paraphrase into this parenthetical citation with a space before it. And then you put a period at the end so that it becomes part of the sentence. And you put a comma after the author's name, and you put the date or the year. And you can also do it the second way, which is to introduce the citation, the quotation or paraphrase using the author's name. And if you want to do it that way, you just put the year in parentheses afterwards like this. Those are the 2 basic ways that you would be citing your sources in your paper. Your references list goes at the end on a separate page, and it says references at the top. And I apologize if this is a review for a lot of you, but I'm still having students put works cited, which of course is MLA style. I'm having students put sources, or, even other words, resources sometimes. You want the word references. You don't want to make it bold, underlined, or any other kind of formatting, just regular 12-point Times New Roman font, just like the rest of your paper. But it does need to be centered above the list. And you don't put a colon after it either. And then your references list needs to be alphabetized by the author's last name. So Adams would go first, for example. You can also see in the Adams listing, which would be like John Adams, you would have a J period. You don't write the whole name, you just write the initial for the first name. Then you put after that the date in parentheses, 2014, comma. You can put May 1st if you have the year and the day. You can put that in your references list. I mean the month and the day. Another thing I want to emphasize is that article titles in the references list should not be italicized. A lot of people are doing that. That's not the right way, so I always have to correct this. You also want to capitalize those article titles in the references list as if they were sentences. So you can see here it says capitalize only, their first word, proper nouns, and the first word after a colon. That's how you do it in the references list only, so not in the body of your paper, because a lot of students will carry this into other places in the paper, and that then it's wrong. So, but you never italicize article titles anywhere, only books and titles of full works, complete works. Articles are smaller parts of a larger work. Okay, so here's what I wanted to show you. One of our ACDs, and maybe you had her for Comp 1, I don't know, Jenny Donovan. She's actually officially the ACD for Comp 2, and I'm the CD, just FYI. She made this website, and it's wonderful. I'm just so happy that we have it, and this is it. It's called Project APA. I've provided links to it for you. Oh, you're from Wilmington, Delaware. I see now, Andrea. I can suddenly see your, and that's interesting because, and I'll tell you, I'll type this instead of saying it out loud. I'm very familiar with Wilmington, or used to be. Just over the Pennsylvania border. Excuse me, people listening while Andrea and I have a quick conversation. Anyway, so we have this wonderful website called Project APA that Jenny, oh, I was born there. Okay, projectapa.info, and if you look at this website, you'll see that you have pull down menus. So if you need to know how to do a specific kind of in-text citation, Andrea's pointing out the hospital. She knows where I was born. This is freaking me out. In that, but much, I'm sure many, many years before she was. A long time ago. I don't even know. Is that hospital still there, Andrea? I'm not sure. Or is it Andrea or Andrea? It is. Okay. I was born. Now, I was probably not born in the present building. I think that building is, the building I was born in is, knocked down and rebuilt in a new one. Anyway, that's weird. Andrea. Okay. Thank you for pointing that out, because sometimes I miss how to pronounce people's names. So going back to this Project APA website, you can see that if you have questions about in-text citations, for example, you can see how to do it. There's all different kinds of examples. If you want to know how to do a references list, you can pull this down. If you want to look at this, usually there's a, I guess there's no pull down menu for that, but this is really going to be helpful for you, because as you're formatting your paper, you want to double check it against this and make sure that it has all of these elements. There's a checklist that I made that you can download if you want to compare it with your paper, and there's also a sample paper with formatting guidelines. So there's really everything that you need, and you can even download it here. There's pretty much everything that you need in this paper. And I'm not going to go over this paper now. I will go over an APA formatted paper, possibly this one, either next week or the week after, but you're not going to be writing a paper in this format yet, not this week. So I don't want to overwhelm you with information. But I do want you to know that we have this website for you, and it really provides the information that you need. We did not give you everything like some of the APA websites include all the information that you'll ever need to know, because at Full Sail you only use a small portion of that. It's pretty basic what you do. So we didn't want to overwhelm you again. So we made this website specific for this class and Full Sail students. So I hope you'll find that useful. I think it's wonderful. Okay, so back to our slides. Again, you want to use that website for reference. Anytime you have a question, go there first. If you're still not sure, please ask me. I might have changed that this month. I used to have an APA FAQ board, but I got rid of it this month because I want you to use this website instead. It's basically the same thing in just a different format. So you need to, when you're doing your research, you need to make sure that you fulfill the requirements of each assignment. So some of the assignments ask you to do certain specific things, don't just see that it's a research essay and, oh, I'm just going to go do research. Read all the directions to see what it is that you need to do. Also, this month, I'm going to unshare my screen for a minute just in case I have grades up somewhere that I don't want you to see. But this month I have included frequently asked questions along with the assignment directions, and it's right on like the first page of the directions. So if you click on the assignment, it just takes a second to come up. If you click on the assignment, it's coming up. Here we go. I can show my screen. This is how it looks to me. If you click on, for example, this assignment, I'm not even sure I did it for the first one because it was pretty cut and dried. Let's go to one I know I did it for, and that's this rhetorical appeals. And I go into edit. I have to do that on my end to see what you see. And then I'll go to preview, and this is supposedly how it looks to you. And then you can see I was calling it frequently asked questions, but instead I'm calling it what can I do to do well or to succeed on this assignment. These bulleted points here are things that I continually have to deduct points for students not doing them correctly or not doing them at all. So that's why I've highlighted them on each first page of each assignment. I want everyone to understand that if you want to get a good grade on the assignment, you need to do these things. This isn't going to guarantee that you get an A necessarily, although you certainly have a better chance of getting an A if you do these things. So I just wanted to point out that most, but not all of the assignments have these, and the ones that don't are just so basic, like a peer review kind of thing, that it didn't seem necessary to me. And if you still have questions after reading this, of course you can ask me those. Your sources for your research need to be reliable. So you probably know what I mean by a reliable source. I'm giving you the opportunity to use the internet, but mostly to use Full Sail library databases. And there's a lot of them there. And when you get to that, which you don't need to do this week, but when you get to that, you're going to see a video showing you how to use those. And reliable sources are sources that have an author with an actual name, not just a posting on a message board, a comment on a blog, something like that is not a reliable source. If that person links back to something that they wrote and you can actually see who they are, and the description, their about information shows that they are an expert in their field, then you could use them, but you have to trace it back to the origins, if you will. So you want to use reliable sources. You want to use studies, results of studies. You want to use people who have actually experienced this firsthand. So someone who's actually climbed Mount Everest and been through that experience would be a much more reliable source than someone like myself who's read John Krakauer's Into Thin Air. It's like great book, but I've actually never climbed that mountain, so I'm not really a reliable source on what happens on that mountain when you climb it. So someone who's has firsthand experience and can provide firsthand information. Someone who's just an expert, someone who has done a lot of research and is sort of has immersed themselves in something. When it comes to the entertainment industry, someone like a producer, and I mean music producer or film producer, any of that kind of thing, a director, someone who's a recording engineer, anyone who is immersed in the actual entertainment industry, not someone who you know makes music with their next door neighbor in their bedroom, but someone who's actually out and well known in the industry and has worked with a lot of people. That would be a reliable source. So keep that in mind when you're doing your research. Okay, so it's possible. I'm finding that it's possible that the expectations in this class might be a little different from some of the other classes you've had because this is an actual English class. So even if you're in the creative writing program, I'm not sure how those assignments are graded, but I do take points off for grammar, spelling, errors in grammar, spelling, capitalization, punctuation, sentence structure, mechanics, anything like that. Not a ton of them. You know, if you have a misspelled word, you're not going to fail the paper for sure. But, you know, you get a couple points off if you're careless. And it's kind of easy for me to tell the difference between a typo and someone just not proofreading at all. So make sure that you pay attention to your writing. You want to present the best writing that you can in this class, and you want it to be polished. You want this is a college class, you want everything to be polished that you submit. And that shouldn't be go for just an English class. That should go for anything you submit to any of your classes. So make sure to proofread. You also need to follow the directions. Not following the directions is the main reason people fail assignments. People who have done the assignments fail assignments. So just think about that. If you don't follow the directions, there's a good chance you're going to fail. So if you just read the description on the first page of the assignment, when you click on it and then that description comes up, such as the one I just showed you a minute ago with a bulleted list of items that you need to not forget to do. If you don't download and read the directions, and if you don't watch the videos, you probably won't get a good grade on the paper. So just as a reminder, you're expected to put between 30 and 40 hours a week into your class, your online classes at Full Sail. And so that's something that I'm required to have. I'm required to give you that much work. So just always give yourself time. You want to read through all of the directions twice before beginning an assignment. You want to read over the rubric. You want to look at the example papers if there are some. For some of the assignments there are, for others you can go right to the APA sample paper and look at that. You want to follow the directions step by step. In many of them we have in paragraph 1 put this, in paragraph 2 put this. So you want to do that. And then before you submit your work, you want to read through the directions again to make sure you haven't left anything out, because it's the leaving things out that people get deductions for. If you look at the rubric categories, you'll see included an outside source, or included research and documented it using APA formatting might be worth 20 or 30 points. If you didn't include any research and just wrote your own thoughts, then you're going to lose those 20 or 30 points right off the top. And so these are some things that I'm continually having to deduct points for. And I don't like to. I want all my students to do well, but I have to follow the rubric. So don't forget to follow the directions. Turnitin is something that we are going to be using starting next week. You probably have used it before. I just want to remind you that when you upload your work to Turnitin, it should be a Word document. I believe that when you upload it, some people walk away and go do other things, and then the deadline has passed and they come back and they think that they've uploaded it, and then they realize they didn't click, I think the button says confirm. That's like an extra step, and I know it's annoying because I've had this happen to me with email attachments. In some email programs, Outlook, I think, you actually have to click, several times to attach a document. And so sometimes I forget the last step, and fortunately that it never sends, it just kind of sits there. I think it's sent, it hasn't. That's what will happen in Turnitin if you don't click that last step, that last button. Okay, you shouldn't be waiting until the last minute to submit your work, of course, and you should do an originality check. That's a feature that you can do on Turnitin, and it should be available to you when you submit your work. I'm going to show you some screenshots of what I see, and the reason I want you to do an originality check is that you can see, it will show you what you used that wasn't your own words. And so it will show you, for example, if for any paper you upload, any paper on Turnitin, it gives me this percentage at the top here. This is just from someone's paper. I did a screenshot. So this paper is 19% similar to at least one other paper, if not more, that have been uploaded to Turnitin. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if it's a source or a paper that needs outside sources. A lot of times that is the quotation that you used. Another student writing a paper in another college thought that was a good source too, and that that was a good quotation, and they used that in their paper. And Turnitin actually shows me that. I'll show you the slide in a minute, but so I can see, okay, 19% of what this student wrote is not the student's own words. They took it from somewhere else. So that's the first step. And then it shows me in it kind of color codes your writing. So in this particular one, you see the red, you can see number one, submitted to Full Sail. This is actually a revision of a paper a student wrote before, so that's his own word, so that's fine. Hardly anything. As you can see, he rewrote a lot of it. The two says this is from the Washington Post. Well, you can see that the student put quotation marks around it and documented it with an outside, with a parenthetical citation. So that's great too. You can see there's a whole list over here on the right of other things that other papers submitted to Turnitin that were used before. Or sometimes you can see submitted to DeVry University, submitted to New England something, submitted to National something. Or it also goes out on the internet and finds the sources. So it doesn't just use papers uploaded to it, it also goes out to the internet and finds where it was written originally. So this is just something you need to keep in mind. Always document your sources. As long as you document them by, you know, what you see here with number two, you'll be fine. Just don't use someone's own words and claim them as your own. This is just again something that you can see. That's what Turnitin shows me. And because it does it in color coding, I don't necessarily have to like go back to the blogspot, for example, and find the original. I can see enough here. So again, document everything that you take from another source and don't use all direct quotations. In fact, most of what you use from outside sources should be paraphrased. That means you should put it in your own words. And when you put it in your own words, you don't put quotation marks around it. If you take it directly from the source, then you do put quotation marks around it. I will be spending more time on that in a future GoToMeeting because that's not extremely relevant for this week, but I wanted to just let everyone know that this is what you'll be expected to do. You can also summarize, which we'll talk about again, and you can find also paraphrasing, summarizing, and quoting on that APA website. Use those direct quotations with quotation marks around them only when you can integrate them into the text smoothly and when they perfectly support your point. I'll show you, I probably will show you an example, a good example of that next week or the week after. You can't resubmit work from previous classes. So this is something that you need to understand. If you've taken this class before, you must do all new original work. And you can see from Turnitin that if you've submitted something, and if you were in this class before and you submitted something to Turnitin, it will show me anyway. So you'll get caught. You always want to do original work because you want to submit your best work. You want to show us where you are now. As time passes, we always learn and we improve our skills and our writing skills, our researching skills. Even if it's just been a couple months, you've learned something since the last time you took this class. And so show me that. Show me that you can do better. Clearly, if you're retaking the class, you either withdrew or you failed. So you don't want to submit the same work that you didn't get a good grade on. And you do need to redo original work even if you withdrew from the class before finishing. Recent student had an issue with that and didn't understand that. So I wanted to make sure that was clear. You won't get extra credit in this class, especially if you fail at the end and suddenly you realize you want extra credit. That's not going to work. There are some opportunities for extra credit, but they are what I would call hidden throughout the class. For example, there will be times when you might watch a video and at the end it might say that you can get some extra credit points if you let me know, but only certain ones. So you'll need to watch all the videos and all the recordings of GoToMeetings to find out more about how to get extra credit. talking about argument, I'm thinking out loud now that this might be better earlier when I'm talking more about argument at the beginning, but um, your argument that you write for this class, your arguments will need to have claims. A claim is the same thing as a thesis statement, but it's something that takes a position on an issue. It's got to be debatable. So someone could disagree with you. So if you would say pollution is bad for our environment, that's not debatable. That's not really a claim. That's just stating the obvious. You want to have a statement that is something that people will disagree with you on. And then you're going to be in your piece of writing, you're going to be writing persuasively and including such strong evidence that people are going to say, you're right. Now, that you made some really good points here. It must be narrow. That means it must be focused. And some examples are here, and I'm not going to look at them right now. Again, we're going to go over more about this, I think, next week and the week after. Your first assignment is called Debating Timely Issues. In your Debating Timely Issues assignment, let's see if I have more of that. No. In your Debating Timely Issues assignment, you will be going to the New York Times. If you have already looked at this, you'll see that you'll be reading a place on the New York Times website that's called, is it called Debating Time or Room for Debate? Room for Debate. And every week, maybe every day, pretty regularly anyway, they have articles and they're very short. So don't feel like you're going to be slogging through long, boring articles. They're very short and to the point, where people are taking sides on certain issues. And you will see links to these in the assignment. So I link directly to these. Only use the ones that are in the assignment, that are linked to in the assignment. There's at least 8 or 9. And so you'll be able to pick at least something you're mildly interested in, I would imagine, because people are interested in different topics, but there's several different things that you can read, and then you're going to be following the directions and taking your own position. So you'll basically be summarizing the argument, like what people feel, what the positions are on the argument, why you chose it, why specifically you said this would be a good thing for me to write about, and then your feelings on the issue. And then the second post is a peer review. So the peer review is when your classmates read your post, and particularly your argument part where you gave reasons, and then they um, analyze it. And they also look at your introduction and conclusion and so forth to see how effective they are. So that's what you'll be doing this week. So make sure to give yourself time to go to the New York Times website and to read some different ones. You might find that you read several different ones before you get hooked into one that you want to write about. But again, they're all pretty short articles. So getting in touch with me is easiest through FSO and the messaging. So actually you would send like a private message to me using the comment function. You could do that, but it's not as clear to those of us, to instructors, that you've commented. It's very clear when we get a message. It comes up sort of like an email. The comments go in a different category, and they can get lost in the flood of other information that we get from the class. This new with FSO, we're still getting used to it, but we all used it the first time last month, as you know, so I'm sure you're getting used to it too. And there are some things I like about it and things like feel like could be changed. But the messaging, where you can send me a message, is a really good way to get in touch with me, and I look at that several times a day. You can also email me if you wish. You can also call me at extension 8960, and I'm in the office. Well, you can see my office hours in the announcement about that. And my iChat isn't working right now. I got a new computer because mine crashed last month, and I had to get a new hard drive. And ever since then, I haven't been able to get onto iChat. But mostly, very rarely do students contact me that way anyway. So I'm not too concerned. I think that FSO is the best way. And that way we can keep a good record of our conversation, because it stays in there and you can, look at the history of it very clearly. So I like that. And if you do have a question about something, include the name of the assignment, because it won't be obvious to me which assignment you're referring to when you message me. And you can check your messages twice a day. I will be checking my messages more than that, except on the weekends. I won't be checking them very often at all. But when you are during the week, when you check FSO, always read any notifications from me because I wouldn't say anything. Sometimes they go to the whole class, sometimes they'll go to you individually. I won't be giving you that information unless I think it's important. So you need to check that. As I mentioned before, anything that's available for download, you should be looking at. So you cannot, not just with the assignments, but somewhere else in the class. And I believe it is, how do I get back to the beginning? Okay, I think it's here. Oh, I could have looked at it here as well. And by the way, here's if I'm not going to bring it down. I want everybody to see what everybody else is doing, but this is how I'm notified of pretty much almost everything you do. So there's just like all these different kinds of notifications here. Whereas this is just messages, specific messages. So when I see something here, it's sort of has more importance to me than here, because this just could be somebody submitted an activity. Somebody wrote on the community discussion board, something like that. It just doesn't have the urgency. So I think that you have this about this course here. And then when you, and again, I can't see what you see. And then here, there are some things that you need to look at and you need to download. The syllabus, FSO support card is something made by FSO support for you to use. The grading guide is made by me, and it goes over it goes over in detail some of the grammar and sentence structure and so forth, things that I'll point out to you. And then this is about the Writing Center. So if you ever need to use the Writing Center at any time while you're here at Full Sail, this will give you the information about how to do that. Now, Andrea, you have, if we the writer is the source, do we place our name? No. No, you don't put your name in the references list for your own thoughts. Your name is going to go at the beginning of the paper, and so I know it's your thoughts. You only document what you've used from outside sources. Where can you access ebook? Well, I'm not, believe it or not, your instructors are not the best people to ask about the ebook, but okay, hold on. I'm going to unshow you the screen because some of that is confidential. And then, all right. Okay, this isn't confidential. So this is just the announcements, and this is how they look to me. And there's one about the ebook. Well, there should be. Here we go. Guidelines for getting ebook code or solving download problems. This is what you must do. If you didn't get an ebook, you need to go to this announcement and follow these directions, because you're going to have to go outside the class to FSO support or to the book distribution center to find out information about your ebooks. I don't have anything to do with how they're distributed. I will say that you should have been emailed a code for the book about 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks before the class started. And that's pretty much what always happens. So if you need to go back into your Full Sail email account and look to see if you got the code. And if you don't see it there, maybe it went into spam or I don't know, that kind of thing. It shouldn't have, but sometimes student email goes into my spam filter. I don't know why. It's from Full Sail, so you would think Full Sail would not quarantine its own Full Sail email, but it happens sometimes. So, okay, just finishing up here. We're almost done. I want to make sure that everyone understands that we have assignments due Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. So when an assignment opens midnight on Sunday, I'm not expecting you to be sitting there in your pajamas waiting for it to open. I know that's not realistic, although some people might be. But as soon as you can, look at them. By Monday night, you should have opened everything and read and understood what it is that you're supposed to do. And if you had time, you should have started working on it. You don't want to wait until I put the last week. And you know what? That should be the last minute. I had to make these slides new last month. Whoops. because as I was saying, I lost everything and I had to redo everything. So there are a couple typos I haven't caught. And make sure, this is extremely important, make sure that you review my feedback closely. Always look at feedback. On Turnitin, I can see if you don't look at my feedback, and that's going to factor into either professionalism or, in at least one case, the actual grade that you get on the next assignment, because the researched argument essay will be a step-by-step process that starts at the end of next week, not this week, the end of week 2. But it it scaffolds, it builds, so that you need to always read the feedback to make sure that you've done the next step correctly. We're always on a tight schedule. You know that. You've been at Full Sail. I'm on a tight grading schedule. You're on a tight writing schedule. The good news is that this month I only have one class, which hasn't happened in years, but for some reason, there aren't a lot of sections in any of the classes in this department this month. So we are having a little bit of a lighter schedule. So I should be able to get your work back to you in a very timely manner. So you should have time to look at my feedback. And by time, I mean at least a day. I know that's not a lot, but that's Full Sail. That's how it works. Okay, and I'm going to see if Andrea has any questions. Do you have any questions? If you are listening to this and you have any questions, please let me know, and you can message me or email me. Those are the best ways. If you have an emergency and it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or Friday afternoon, you can call me. I will not be in the office for the rest of the week, but I will be available to talk on FSO all week. I'm always available, not in the middle of the night or anything, but during the reasonable daytime, I'm always available. So thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. And I hope that everyone has a great month. And again, please always ask if you have questions.